Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Sometimes the best way to find a living is to stay right where you are and study with UAS online. Career-specific distance programs from the University of Alaska Southeast are the fastest way to increase your earning power.
We connect all over the world.
The National Weather Service.
Good evening, everyone. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with the National Weather Service. Welcome back to Alaska Weather. It's the 22nd of November, almost Thanksgiving Day. 800-472-0391 is the way to find out your forecast for your Alaska community. I'll have a sneak peek at that Thursday forecast here in just a minute if you're going across state or perhaps coming through Anchorage to get out of the state. Weather.gov/Alaska is your place online to find that information, and nws.ar.tv weather at noaa.gov is a way to ask questions over email. If you'd like to reach the TV weather team, you can do it that way, and that'll get to me as well, and we'll guide you through the website if you can't find something you're looking for, or just answer your general weather questions. We'd be happy to take a look at that, and we're always happy to see your weather pictures. Go ahead and send us a few of those, and perhaps we'll show them on Alaska Weather later on this week. Just a reminder of our show times on AKwx. We're still live at 5:30. Same goes for UAF TV, 5:30 there in the Fairbanks region. 360 North, 7 days a week now at 7:30 p.m. Alaska Public Media, you can find us at 5 o'clock at the following morning. And on YouTube a little bit earlier the previous evening, about 7 o'clock or so after we taped the show, and between 7 or 8, you'll find us on YouTube. If you search for AKwx TV, you can use that on your smartphone, zip ahead to the marine section, or just check out the aviation weather if you like, and then move on about your day. Here's a look at the Thanksgiving Day forecast now. As we skip ahead to Thursday, Barrow, we're expecting a chance for some light snow, pretty dry and cold conditions for many in the interior. Fairbanks could be as cold as -3 on Thursday, 19 and mostly cloudy in Nome. Many in the Bering will continue to see unsettled weather there. In St. Paul, about 39, a chance for some rain and snow there. A chance for rain and snow all the way across the Aleutians from Shemya to Adak and Unalaska at 42. 39 with an increasing chance for rainfall in Cold Bay as the day goes on. Looks like it'll be clear, and about 40 degrees in Kodiak. Southeast looking for a chance for some rainfall in Ketchikan at 43 with a low pressure system here across the eastern Gulf. Sitka 42, and Juneau mainly cloudy and 37, but clear in Yakutat with a mostly sunny sky and 37 degrees, 29 in Anchorage. As we look at the satellite picture, we still see the unsettled pattern focusing on the central and eastern Gulf. Low pressure will start to move up the southeastern coastline in the coming days, and as it does so, slosh more rainfall across parts of southeast. Today we saw periods of light snow in Juneau there, making things fairly white. In the meantime, a new wave of low pressure is brewing out across the west, and as that continues to track eastward into the Bering Sea, we'll keep that rain and snow chance going for the central chain and the eastern chain, and gradually working its way into the Alaska Peninsula with cold and clear weather generally falling across the central and eastern interior, including Fairbanks. Today's weather shows high pressure across the western Yukon at 1,021 millibars. You can see low pressures here across the eastern Gulf at 987 millibars, a 986 millibar low east of Kodiak Island, and the front that's working up across the southeastern coastline has brought rain to some parts of central and southern southeast and some light snow across the northern parts of the Panhandle and all the way up toward Yakutat. We've got some drier weather around Prince William Sound, the Cook Inlet region. Once you get into southwest, you start to see periods of light snow once again and rainfall across the eastern chain with a 981 millibar low across the central Bering Sea. Around Savunga, there was light snow this afternoon. Around Galena, also looking at some light snow with high pressure again across the western Yukon. We locked in some lower clouds, but it's mostly cold and clear air. And areas of fog and light snow were found across the north slope. Once we get into tonight, the pattern across the Gulf won't change very much. We'll lose that frontal focus there, a sharper contrast between air temperatures, colder and warmer. and will kind of get mixed up a little bit more, but the focus for precipitation will still be there. So watch for passing rain and snow showers across parts of southeast and all the way into the northern Gulf. Don't be surprised to find some rain around Seward and into Kodiak with a 981 millibar low still across the central Gulf. A wave of low pressures on the back side of that, and that could keep things unsettled across parts of Bristol Bay and into the coastal areas of the inside waters of Norton Sound. Meanwhile, across the north, the fog is likely again across the north slope. You'll see cloud cover there a little bit further south for the central and eastern interior, and really all the way down to about the Susitna Valley. It looks like things will be fairly clear and cold, as you'll see with the nighttime low temperatures here in just a bit. A look out west shows that next weather pattern working its way in from the west, the frontal boundary working into the western chain, with the low anchoring that at 975 millibars. Winds are going to come up sharply with this across the western chain. Watch for storm force winds there as we get into Wednesday and Thursday. Showers will continue across the Shelikof Strait in the northern Gulf and southeast for the daytime tomorrow. And watch for periods of rain and snow showers again, especially around some of the higher terrain from the Misty Fjords northward up into the northern Lynn Canal. Low pressure builds in a little bit more at 979 millibars, so it's weakening there across the eastern Gulf as it slowly creeps eastward toward the eastern Gulf itself. Now look for low clouds and some flurries across the north slope. Better chance for snow showers across the Chukchi Sea and out west, and a look out west across the chain shows a better chance for rainfall there in the south. As we get into Thursday, you can see the pressure pattern really packing in here across the western chain. The low pressure system is only 979 millibars, but the orientation of this will also produce a better chance for winds down at the surface. So again, from areas west of Adak all the way out to Kiska and Attu, there's going to be considerably stronger winds developing there as we get into Wednesday and Thursday. Things will be pretty clear and generally quiet across the northern Gulf, all the way from Kodiak to the Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound, Susitna, and the Matanuska Valleys. Looking northward, that dry weather continues all the way into the Kobuk and Noatak Valleys, the Koyukuk Valley, and the central and eastern Yukon Valley, with low clouds lingering across the northern slope. And you'll see some flurries there and periods of fog across the Chukchi and the Beaufort Seas. For southeast, it looks like rain showers are in your future. This will creep northward as we go from Wednesday into Thursday, so slightly warmer weather there working in from south and southeast. So probably not having to deal with the risk of a tremendous risk of any snow across the region, except for some of the higher terrain around Juneau and even points north of that into Skagway and Haines, maybe even Yakutat could end up on the drier side, as you saw. Here's a look at temperatures today then. 30s and 40s what we saw across southeast, with Juneau sticking to readings only in the lower 30s today. 44 around Sitka, lower 40s around the Misty Fjords, Ketchikan and Annette out toward Craig and Klawock, also in the 40s today. Petersburg and Wrangell a little bit cooler there in the 30s. 34 in Hyder. Around Haida Gwaii, temps were in the mid-40s this afternoon. Yakutat only 35 at 3 o'clock. It was 26 in Cordova, 18 in Valdez, lower 20s from Anchorage all the way down toward Kenai, 33 in Homer. Seward was 31. And as you move down toward Kodiak, it was nearly 40 degrees at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Middleton Island passed that easily at 45. Out around Glen Allen and Gulkana, 15 below this afternoon. Pretty chilly stuff there with Talkeetna at 20 degrees. Across the Alaska Range we go, and into the Middle Tanana Valley we saw 5 below in Fairbanks, 6 below in Healy, 1 below for Eagle, and Northwest saw temperatures as cold as 3 below this afternoon. The Anaktuvuk Pass region was 11 below, with Fort Yukon just clearing everything off the chart there at 26 below this afternoon, and that again thanks to high pressure sitting across the western Yukon. The North Slope in the single digits and low to mid-teens. Barrow 12. That's 12 above. 11 around Kivalina, 12 in Kotzebue, 7 for Shishmaref. Nome saw 2 above, with Unalakleet looking at 12 above this afternoon. Looks like Grayling and many locations along the Kuskokwim back in the single digits there. Above 0. Bethel was only 0, though, right on the button, and 20 for Nunivak Island. Sivunga 26 again, and had some snow out that way. Bristol Bay temperatures were in the teens and 20s. Lake Iliamna also in the upper teens. As you move down the Alaska Peninsula, temperatures were pretty close to the upper 30s for the most of the day. A few places got a little bit closer to that 40-degree mark, and that includes St. Paul at 39 this afternoon. St. George just a few degrees cooler. Unalaska and Dutch Harbor, 38 degrees, 39 in Atka, 41 in Adak, and it was 40 out in Chemung this afternoon. Here's a look at low temperatures tonight. No surprise, with high pressure clearing the sky and pushing all that cold air down to the surface, which it already wants to do because it's so dense. It settles into places like Fort Yukon, where temperatures will likely be 20 to 30 below tonight. Eagle and Northway also in the mid-teens to low 20 below range. Fairbanks looking at 16 below, single digits and teens for most of the Kenai Peninsula. Anchorage about 6. For many across southeast, look for temperatures in the upper 20s to mid 30s. As you get out toward the southern outer coast of southeast, temps could be closer to 40 degrees. The north slope anywhere from 1 to 2 below across the Beaufort seacoast to 5, maybe 6 degrees above zero for the Chukchi seacoast. For Kotzebue Sound, anywhere from 10 to 20 above. Southwest and the YK Delta coastline, single digits for many. At Nunivak Island, milder at 18. 25 above for Savoonga, 30 in St. Paul. The Alaska Peninsula in the lower to mid 30s. Kodiak Island 38 and mid to upper 30s there for the central and western chain, with high temperatures tomorrow recovering into the lower to mid 40s. 30s and 40s for the Alaska Peninsula, 42 around Kodiak. Bristol Bay temps in the mid 20s, 22 in Nunivak Island. Mid teens for the Norton Sound region. Single digits and low teens for Minnie and Kotzebue Sound. Shishmaref 16 though, 7 in Barrow, 2 for Kaktovik. Prudhoe Bay and Deadhorse also looking at single digits tomorrow. 10 below for Fort Yukon, some recovery possible there. Single digits around the middle Tanana Valley in Fairbanks and Healy. 9 below for Eagle and Northway. And southeast, you're looking at temps in the 30s to mid 40s tomorrow afternoon for your Wednesday. Flying weather now. Interior locations look pretty good. VFR should be the rule for a large part of the day. IFR lingering around Kaktovik in the morning, and regions around Port Lions all the way down toward Kodiak in the morning again. And watch for some IFR lingering around Haines and Skagway, with hit and miss MVFR for parts of southeast and the southwestern coastline. As we get into the afternoon, some improvements will be seen in southeast. Look for VFR flying from Prince William Sound all the way to Kodiak Island, lingering MVFR around some of the Aleutian chain and the southwestern coastline, but that should improve. Same goes for the Seward Peninsula, but look for MVFR across the north slope and the coast there in the north as we go through the afternoon. Here's a look at your pass conditions. As we saw, Anaktuvik and Adigan Pass look pretty good. VFR is going to be the call there for Lake Clark and Merrill Pass. We also expect to see visual flight rule all the way around most of the Alaska range, actually. Rainy Pass, Windy Pass looking pretty good. Isabel Pass, we expect to see VFR throughout the day. Mentasta Pass, we should say VFR. Tanita Pass, also VFR conditions expected there. Portage Pass looks pretty good. Chilkoot and White Pass might flirt with IFR in the morning, but things should improve as the day goes on to VFR. Freezing levels now show that cold air is in charge of the Gulf and really all of the mainland there. You can see the surface freezing line hugging the Bristol Bay region and then dancing over the Kenai Peninsula into parts of southeast. So it is cold, and because of that, icing potential is certainly there. A little bit of moisture working over southeast tomorrow, and generally above 4,000 feet could produce some light to isolated moderate icing threats. Below 5,000 feet for the Beaufort seacoast, and above 4,000 feet for the Kodiak Island area, all the way out toward Chignik and down the Aleutian chain just a little bit. The jet stream has a powerful flow of weather passing over the Aleutians, and that will pick up actually in the next day or so as this really stronger burst of fast-moving wind starts to drop into the Aleutians. As that happens, the winds are going to come up at the surface. In the meantime, the main path for really active weather is still just to the south of Alaska at this point. That's allowing colder air to drop in from the north, and of course, being the time of the year that it is much colder than what we've had for a large part of the season. In the meantime, low pressure will continue at 9,000 feet to drive in northerlies 20 to 25 knots across the Chukchi and the Beaufort seacoast. We have another circulation in the Gulf that's driving in southeasterlies at 9,000 feet from about 30 to 40 knots across the Panhandle. And that becomes more of a north and easterly wind across the western Alaska Range and the southwestern coastline, 20 to 25 there. And then here are the stronger westerlies building in already across the western chain, 25, and quickly ramping up to 70 knots there from the west. At 3,000 feet, similar weather pattern. You can see a slightly different flow, a south and easterly flow across the Panhandle, east to westerlies across the northern Gulf. Light north and easterly winds draining out of the Yukon, the Kuskokwim valleys, and the Kobuk. About 10 knots or so on the western side of that low pressure system. And here are the winds building in once again across the western Bering. 40 to as high as 50 knots there, 55 coming in from the south, already wrapping around low pressure there. The north slope, north and easterlies for you at 20 knots there over Point Barrow. Turbulence then we'll be watching for the areas in the central and southern chain, generally below 4,000 feet. Won't be surprised to see some light to isolated moderate there tomorrow with low pressure still in the vicinity, and watch for the central and western chain and maybe even as far east as Dutch Harbor and Unalaska to see a little bit of chop below 4,000 feet. Everything else doesn't seem to have any significant turbulence threat for the daytime tomorrow. So be careful as you fly. We'll be back with an update on the sea ice edge and some of its southern extent as we look ahead into your marine weather forecast. Stay tuned. Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm Dave Snider, and joining me again is Cindy Preller. She's the Tsunami Program Manager for Alaska Region's National Weather Service. Thanks again for joining us, Cindy.
Thanks for having me back, Dave.
Sure thing. And I love saying Tsunami Program Manager for Alaska's National Weather Service because that's not weather. Why is the Tsunami Program part of the National Weather Service?
Well, it's because the Weather Service absolutely rocks at warning people for every kind of, devastating natural hazard.
The mission of the Weather Service is to protect life and property. And so how does the Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer, Alaska, which is a very unique office, again, within the Weather Service, it's not weather, how do those folks help us protect life and property?
The National Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer is a national warning center, and we analyze seismic traces 24/7 all around the world. So when there's an earthquake anywhere on the planet, we see it and analyze it within minutes.
Within minutes, and
Within
there's
minutes.
actually a goal to have it under, was it 5 minutes?
If there is a tsunami warning to be issued for continental America, yeah, we must get that out, or shoot to get that out in 5 minutes.
Okay. Now that's not something I have ever learned to do, so I know it would be a struggle for me to do that under probably hours. But it is fascinating to watch, and the office is open on a regular basis for tours, right?
Absolutely, come by Friday.
Okay.
Yep, every Friday at 1, 2, and 3 p.m. They're open public free tours. And it's the most interesting place on the planet. You really should check it out.
Okay, and the office team is made up of people that are earth scientists, not meteorologists or atmospheric scientists. Talk about some of the types of people that work there.
Right, we are out of place in our National Weather Service, but yeah, we are geologists, geophysicists, oceanographers. We even have an astrophysicist on board, computer software architects, electronic technicians that are brilliant and innovative. Our software is all written in-house. Our instrumentation is designed in-house. So it's a really, really unique place, and it's just a couple handfuls of people that work there. So
sure.
Yeah.
One of my favorite ways to get a tsunami alert message is on Twitter.
Right.
And I can follow the Twitter address, and we'll put that up on the screen for you there. But it's usually a very quick message that tells you initially what the magnitude of an earthquake could be and about where its epicenter was. What are some of the other ways that you can get that alert message?
Well, Twitter's my favorite too.
Yeah.
And you don't even need a Twitter account to receive
Right.
it. So
That's
it just comes in like an SMS message. But you can also receive it via email, weather radio, of course, the crawler on your television screen, on the internet, Google Alerts,
Right.
marine radio if you're out in harbors and boats. Actually, marine radio is probably,
Yeah, it is a good one.
that's our partnership with the Coast Guard. We're really grateful for that, absolutely. But there's a variety of ways in dissemination.
Okay.
And locally, excuse me, I'm sorry, but locally in the communities, the sirens will go off as
Right.
well.
Right. So lots of different ways to get that very important message very quickly when that matters to you. One of the ways that the Warning Center practices with communities is a test on a yearly basis, right?
Right.
How does that work?
Thanks for bringing that up. It's a controversial issue, but it's super important to help us warn better and really serve Alaskans. So the week of March 27th, the commemoration of the 1964 event, for that week we have a Tsunami Preparedness Week every year. We like communities to get out and do drills and practice and do everything we can to raise awareness. And part of that is a live code test where we actually issue the warning message live and we activate the emergency alert system, which means sirens go off, the TV crawler happens, and it's a test.
We're doing everything that would normally happen without the real threat of the tsunami, just to practice as much as possible.
Right, and this is a major partnership with the State of Alaska, Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, the Emergency Operations Center, and the Alaska Broadcasters Association. Without the media, we wouldn't be able to do this. So the three groups really work tightly together to do our best to warn, educate the public that this is happening so they don't wonder and get scared about it. It has been remarkable what we've learned. I mean, it pretty much breaks somewhere every time, but then we fix it and it gets better. So a quick example is just a few years ago, we used to, when we issued a message, it would activate the entire state.
Right.
right? I mean, Kotzebue, Nome, Bethel, everybody would be in tsunami warning. And so now we can regionalize it to where the actual event is taking place.
Right.
That's pretty huge.
Right, right. So identifying points of failure and also points of success, and making sure we continue down that successful path so that folks are warned as quickly and accurately as possible.
Absolutely. And, you know, to get our communities involved to prep themselves, prep their businesses, prep their tourism, prep their schools, you know, just make this an annual thing they need to be doing.
Right. So as citizens wanting to be prepared, we should be prepared to learn more about that test that's happening usually toward the end of March every year.
Right, and you should be happy that it's happening.
Right.
Instead of upset. Definitely be happy that it's happening.
Right. Just as we test tornado sirens in tornado country, we also have to test the tsunami program as well.
Right, because there isn't enough time. You know, for a local tsunami, the wave will arrive in less than 2 minutes. So it's super important that people know what to do.
Very good. Well, Cindy, thank you so much for helping us know more about the Tsunami Ready program and the test. And the Tsunami Warning Center is a very unique and very important job in the National Weather Service that is just fascinating to me every time I visit the office. So,
It's the only one for the continent. You really should come check it out.
it's an international effort.
Yes.
Wonderful stuff. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Dave.
And thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm Dave Snider. We'll see you next time. And the next day I got a haircut. Here's a look at the sea ice edge, and you can see across northern parts of Cook Inlet, up around the Knik Arm and into the upper Turnagain Arm, there's already some ice developing there. We saw that this morning. By the afternoon, a lot of that kind of flushed out, but it has been cold enough for ice to form there. New ice there will probably be forming later tonight and tomorrow morning. Also in Bristol Bay, you can see some areas of low concentration ice there outside of Dillingham and Naknek. And then as you move up the Kuskokwim Delta, you can find some thicker concentrations of ice forming. Let's look at the bigger picture, and you can see that higher concentration ice along the coast is finding its way into Norton Sound and into Kotzebue Sound, starting to fill outward there. There's still a large area of open water across the Chukchi Sea. The Beaufort Sea coast, of course, is filling in nicely there with higher concentrations all the way east of Point Barrow toward Kaktovik. And as we get some of these western storms that are still moving up toward the coastline with stronger southerly winds, the concentration of ice along the western coast will likely be fluctuating for quite a while there. And conditions, of course, are warm, and there's some stronger winds that'll move the ice along. So be ready for changing ice conditions along the west coast, but ice continues to grow across the North Slope and the Chukchi coast at that. Here's a look at the weather now in southeastern Alaska with low pressure to your south. Look for northerlies in the Lynn Canal up to 25 knots with a 5-foot sea. Southeasterlies in the Clarence Strait, 30 knots with an 11-foot sea. And those southeasterlies will continue up the outer coast as well, but rapidly diminish as you get up around Yakutat, 15 knots with a 9-foot sea there. Compare that to 25 to 30 south of Sitka with 12-foot seas there on Wednesday. For Thursday, a little bit more of an offshore twist with easterlies working out from Yakutat down to the Clarence Strait and the Dixon Entrance. 25 to 30 there, 12 to 15 knots for the seas. Northerlies continue out of the Lynn Canal through Stevens Passage as well, 25 to 30 knots with 5 to 6-foot seas on the inside. 25 knots from the south and east. Expect that inside of Clarence Strait there on Thursday for Thanksgiving. Light northerlies on Wednesday inside of Prince William Sound, 10 knots with a 2-foot sea. East and northeasterlies for the north and western Gulf, 25 to 30 there with 11 to about 11-foot seas there for most areas. Northeasterlies coming down Cook Inlet past the western Barrens at 25 knots and into Shelikof Strait at 30 knots with a 13-foot sea there. 3-foot seas on the northern end of Cook Inlet. Becoming light and variable for Thanksgiving Day. Northwesterlies across the Barren Islands at 25, 6 to 7-foot seas there. You still have light winds and small seas inside of Prince William Sound. And northwesterlies for the north and western Gulf, 15 to as high as 25 knots. East of the Barrens with a 7-foot sea there, and east of Kodiak, 3-foot seas in Shelikof Strait. Northwesterlies will be found inside of Bristol Bay there, 20 knots with a 5-foot sea. Look for 12 to 13-foot seas there on the Pacific coastline. 30-knot winds from the north and west. A little bit lighter winds down the Bering Sea coast, 15 knots with a 12-foot sea there on Wednesday for Thanksgiving Day. Southerlies come up to 35 knots with a 10-foot sea. Southwesterlies inside of Bristol Bay at 15 and 20 to 30 for the Pacific coast. Look for 8 to 9-foot seas there on Thanksgiving Day. For the Aleutians, look for a southeasterly flow feeding into the next weather system west of the chain at this point, 30 to 35 with a 16 to 18-foot sea. It will continue to come up Wednesday night. West and northwesterlies for the central and eastern chain, 20 to as high as 30 knots there between Nikolsky and Atka with a 20-foot sea on Wednesday. By Thursday, you can see storm force winds out in the west, 45 to 55 knots with 27 to 38-foot seas there from Kiska to Attu. So weather is rapidly changing out in the west and getting pretty rough. West and southwesterlies for the central and eastern chain will continue to increase. Look for 35 to 40 knot winds there, with 11 to as high as 22-foot seas in the Bering Sea coast and 11 to as high as 16-foot seas there across the Pacific coast for Thursday, Thanksgiving Day. For the west coast, northeasterlies coming off the mainland there at about 15 knots over the ice. 7 to 8-foot seas are expected, 13-foot seas around St. Matthew, and 16-foot seas on a westerly wind at 15 knots coming into the Pribilofs for Wednesday. For Thursday, southwesterlies pick up around the Pribilofs. You'll see those up to 35 knots. Southerlies a little bit more likely around St. Matthew Island. 11-foot seas there with a south and southeasterly flow coming up the YK Delta coastline and Nunivak Island. And into St. Lawrence Island, 25 to 30 should bring us about 7 to 10-foot seas across the region for Thursday. And for the North Slope, watch for the threat for freezing spray across those areas of open water in the Chukchi. 15 to 30 knot winds from the north and east, with 7 to 10-foot seas expected at their highest around Cape Lisburne, with northeasterlies outside of Kotzebue Sound, 10 knots on a 3-foot sea, and northeasterlies for the Beaufort Sea coast, again flowing over the ice at 10 to 15. A little bit of a direction change there for Thursday, becoming more northwesterly for Kaktovik, but still onshore, 10 to 15 for the Beaufort Sea coast, and offshore winds for the Chukchi coast, 25 to 30, with 5 to 9-foot seas at their highest there on Thanksgiving Day. Recapping tonight's weather, watch for periods of rain and snow showers to continue across southeast. The Gulf will continue to remain unsettled, with periods of rain and snow showers for the southwest and Bristol Bay and areas just west of Galena and into Unalakleet and parts of Norton Sound. Otherwise, fog and some flurries for the North Slope. Another weather maker's moving in from the west. That's going to change the winds up for the west coast. The winds will continue to pick up as we get into Wednesday night and into Thursday there for the western chain, I should say, as low pressure drops to about 975 millibars. And watch for unsettled weather there for the western coast by Thursday for those in Amonach, down toward Bethel and outside of Bristol Bay. Periods of rain showers for southeast. Thanks for watching.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Alyeska Pipeline Service Company, sustaining Alaska's pipeline and its operations today and into the future.